Mapleview High buzzed with the kind of restless energy only found during school-wide events. Posters lined the halls: School Safety Day, Connect, Learn, Protect, with smiling cartoon police officers shaking hands with generic students. Most kids saw it for what it was: a break from class. Free snacks, some awkward speeches, an excuse to scroll through their phones under their desks. But Officer Reed Collins took it seriously. He adjusted the collar of his uniform, took a breath, and gave his K-9 partner a quick scratch behind the ears. "Just one day, Max," he murmured. "Then we're back to the boring stuff." Max's ears twitched. The aging Belgian Malinois was built like a missile, lean, sharp-eyed, with a sense of smell that once got him national recognition in a missing persons case. 2 years into retirement, he should have been on a porch somewhere chewing tennis balls. But when the student committee specifically requested a real K9, someone at the department thought it'd be a fun legacy moment. So Max was back. For one day. "Crowds are getting thick near the gym," Reed said, glancing at the schedule. "Let's show the kids your tricks before we both regret this." The presentation went smoothly at first. Max demonstrated search techniques using planted items in backpacks. The students oohed and ahhed at the precision with which he sniffed out a small box of oregano tucked in a locker. Officer Reed cracked a few corny jokes that even got some genuine laughs. It was all light-hearted, but the mood shifted as they wrapped up and started walking the halls. Max stiffened near the east wing, specifically as they passed the glass-paned door of the counselor's office. He froze, then growled. "Easy," Reed said, instinctively shortening the leash. Max didn't stop. He pulled hard to the right, hackles rising, teeth bared in a snarl. Not barking for show. This was real, alert behavior. Reed immediately scanned the hallway. Empty. Quiet. The counselor's office door was closed. Sunlight slanted through the window. No shadows moved inside. No students. No visitors. Just stacks of files and the faint shape of a chair behind a desk. "Max," Reed said again, kneeling, voice firm. "What is it?" Max ignored him. He lunged, nose pressed to the door seam. Barking now, short, sharp bursts, controlled, but serious. That's when Melissa Crane stepped out from the adjacent office. She was composed, as always, in a beige cardigan and sensible flats. Her ID badge swung from a blue lanyard. "Oh," she said, startled. "Is something wrong?" Reed stood slowly. "I'm not sure. Max is picking up something behind that door. This area's off-limits, right? Staff only." Melissa glanced toward the counselor's office and smiled thinly. "Yes, that's just the secondary records room. Nothing dangerous there, I promise. He's not usually like this unless he's probably reacting to scent triggers," she said quickly. "We do keep anxiety medications stored in there occasionally. Our licensed nurse rotates prescriptions with parental permission." Reed hesitated. The explanation was logical. Still, I've never seen him react this strongly to meds. Especially not from behind a closed door. She folded her arms. "With respect, officer, Max is retired. It's possible his senses are, well, not what they used to be. Reed looked at Max. The dog was still locked in position, nose down, whining low. Melissa stepped forward and gently patted Max's side. He growled softly, just once, then sat, tense, ears flicking. "I'll double-check the room later today," she said, voice soothing, "but I assure you, there's nothing dangerous back there." Reed nodded slowly, still unsure. Then the bell rang, and the hallway exploded into movement. Lunch break turned the gym into chaos. Pizza boxes everywhere, teachers trying to organize cleanup teams. Reed made his way to the side entrance, scanning for anything unusual, when he saw a student trip near the bleachers. Jaden Morales, freshman, skinny, glasses, backpack way too full. He hit the floor, scattering notebooks, pens, and his phone. The screen lit up as it landed face up near Reed's boot. Reflexively, Reed reached down and handed it back. Jaden snatched it from his hands. Too fast, too nervous. "Sorry, thanks, I got it." Reed tilted his head. "You all right?" Jaden nodded. "Yeah, just slippery floors. Careful next time." Jaden darted off toward a table, but not before Reed caught a glimpse of what was on the phone. An image, blurry, zoomed in, probably taken in secret. It showed a dry erase board inside some kind of staff room, and written clearly across the top, "Special Student Support, Tier Access Chart." Below it, names, color codes, checkboxes. He couldn't make out details, but he saw one red-tagged row, and a student's name scribbled beside it. His stomach sank. Back near the front office, Reed caught up with Melissa Crane. "I have a question," he said, lowering his voice. "Do you keep classified student designations posted on any boards?" Her expression didn't change. "I'm sorry, anything color-coded, tiered, for staff use only. I don't know what you're referring to." I saw a photo. It looked like an internal chart. Students grouped. Some tagged red. Her eyes narrowed. "We follow strict confidentiality protocols. Was there ever a student discipline system that used color codes? Or anything like that?" She hesitated. "There was an older system used years ago, long before I started here, meant to categorize support levels. Academic, emotional, behavioral. It was discontinued. Why? Too easily misinterpreted." He nodded, watching her carefully. "So that chart wouldn't exist anywhere on school property now?" "Not officially, no. Unofficially, I don't appreciate the implication." Reed's phone buzzed. It was a message from his precinct contact. A quiet heads-up. Mapleview flagged in old case files. 2017 complaint. Parent accused school of unlawful student monitoring system. Supposedly resolved. No charges filed. Reed looked up from the message. Melissa Crane had already started walking away. Max, still at his side, let out a soft huff and turned back toward the east hallway, the one that passed the counselor's office. He pulled gently at the leash again, toward the closed door, the one no one else ever seemed to enter. That night, Reed reviewed the day's notes with Max curled at his feet. occasionally twitching in a dream. Outside, the town was quiet. Mapleview always was. The kind of place where most offices filed reports about minor vandalism and traffic complaints. But something about today wouldn't leave him alone. The bark, the chart, the way Melissa's eyes hardened, not confused, but cautious. He scratched behind Max's ear. "Good nose, buddy," he said softly, still sharp. Max wagged once. "Barely." Reed tapped his notebook with a pen. There was a pattern forming. A shadow under all the smiles and safety posters. He didn't know what was behind that locked door yet. But something was. And whatever it was, Max knew it first. Mapleview was unusually quiet the next morning. It wasn't just the early hour. It was the kind of stillness that follows a day where something doesn't sit right. Officer Reed Collins pulled into the faculty lot. Max in the passenger seat. Alert but calm. No barking today. But Reed could feel it again, that twitch in his gut that never meant nothing. He hadn't stopped thinking about the blurry photo Jayden had dropped. Or Max's reaction outside the counselor's office. Or the way Melissa Crane had deflected. Like someone used to navigating suspicion. Now it was time to follow the trail more carefully. He started where Max had started, East Hallway. Long lockers. Pale green paint peeling at the edges. Reed walked slow, letting Max lead again. The K9 moved without hesitation. Nose low, until he reached a particular locker. Number 19. He stopped, sat, didn't bark, didn't whine, just waited. Reed narrowed his eyes. That the one? Max stayed frozen. It was the stillness that got Reed's attention. Max only did that when he sensed something active. Something worth marking, but couldn't act on it directly. It was an alert disguised as patience. Footsteps echoed behind them. Reed turned to see Janice from the office staff. "Officer Collins, everything all right?" "Routine patrol," he said with a polite smile. "Locker inspections. Just checking locker 19. Oh." She hesitated. That one shouldn't have a student assigned anymore. The girl it belonged to transferred out last month. "What's her name?" "Mia Tran. Quiet kid. Sophomore." "Why'd she transfer?" Janice shrugged. "I wasn't given a reason. We don't always get one. You'd have to ask Ms. Crane. She handled the file." "Of course she did." Reed jotted the name down in his notebook. "Any chance I could open this?" Janice tapped into her tablet. Frowning. "It's already flagged for maintenance. Won't unlock through the system. Manual override. Maintenance key. I can get it. Please." She nodded and walked off. Heels echoing through the empty hallway. Reed leaned down toward Max. "Mia Tran," he murmured. "Is that what you were trying to say yesterday?" Max thumped his tail once against the floor. The locker didn't open. Even with the key. Even with a crowbar brought in by the janitor. The door stuck like it had fused to the frame. Metal warped slightly near the base. Like someone had slammed it hard from the inside. "We're putting in a repair request," said the janitor. Sweat on his brow. "This one's on the list." "When's the next maintenance window?" "Locker strip gets cleared out Friday for repainting. I can try to pop it open then." Reed nodded. "Let me know when you do. I'd like to be there." Later that afternoon, Reed requested the attendance record for MIA Tran. She hadn't been marked, transferred, in the main student system. Her name was simply gone, manually deleted. That wasn't protocol. On Friday, he returned. The janitor, Mr. Kessler, was already working his way down the row, popping locks and clearing junk into bins. Tired notebooks, broken pencils, forgotten sneakers. When he reached locker 19, Reed was beside him. Max stood close. Still jammed, Kessler said, inspecting the hinges. Give me a sec. He wedged a pry tool into the side seam and pushed hard. The door groaned, resisted, then finally popped open with a dull screech of metal. The locker was empty, mostly. Near the back corner, half hidden in dust, was a small folded scrap of paper. Kessler reached for it, but Reed stopped him. "I'll take that." He picked it up with gloved fingers. A single sentence, scrawled in blue pen. "Don't trust the good ones. Look at the chart." He read it again. "Don't trust the good ones." He folded the note and slid it into an evidence bag. Max sniffed inside the locker again, nose pressing to the inner wall. Then he did something strange. He stepped back, stared at the right side panel, and began scratching, not wildly, methodically, with precision, like he wasn't after a scent, but reacting to something else. Reed knelt beside him, pressed his ear to the metal. He heard a soft click, a hollow echo. The wall wasn't solid. "Get me a screwdriver," Reed said. Kessler passed it over. Reed unscrewed the small panel that ran along the inner side of the locker, where the wall met the frame. It came loose after 4 turns. Behind it, tucked in a shallow, hand-carved compartment, was a small black lens. A camera, wired, hidden, active. Someone had been watching, recording, possibly live. Reed's chest tightened. This wasn't just about a locker anymore. He called it in. Within hours, a tech team arrived to examine the wiring. The locker was sealed. The area was blocked off with a "maintenance hazard" sign to avoid drawing attention. The camera had been battery-powered, motion-triggered, with an encrypted SD card tucked into its side. Reed didn't wait. He drove it straight to the station. Back at his desk, he watched the files, one by one. Low-res footage, but detailed enough. Over a span of weeks, maybe months, students had stood in front of that locker, opened it, taken things out, put things in. But it wasn't just locker 19. Footage from other parts of the hallway. Other lockers. Other students. One video showed MIA Tran standing completely still, reading from a sheet of paper, visibly distressed. Then, a figure entered the frame, face blurred by distance. Melissa Crane. She placed a hand on Mia's shoulder, spoke to her. MIA turned away. The video cut out. Reed sat back, hands clenched. Max rested his head on his lap, sensing the storm brewing under the surface. "Don't trust the good ones," Reed muttered. Melissa Crane was Mapleview's model staffer. Calm, trusted, Teflon. But if MIA had been threatened, or watched, under Melissa's supervision, this wasn't a simple case of school policy overreach. This was surveillance on minors, possibly unauthorized, possibly manipulated, and someone had tried to bury it. The next day, Reed tried to locate MIA Tran. There was no forwarding school on file, no transfer records, no emergency contact information beyond a disconnected number. She had simply vanished from Mapleview's system. But not from Max's memory. And not from Reed's conscience. The next phase of the investigation would need to be quiet, smart, legal, but there was one thing he knew for sure. Locker 19 had opened a door far bigger than its metal frame. Someone had been watching students under the guise of support. Someone had decided which kids got flagged. And someone, maybe even a good one, had rewritten the rules. The counselor's office was quiet the morning Reed returned to Mapleview High. The hallways were half empty, early enough that students trickled in slowly, still shaking off sleep and weekend distractions. The kind of lull where secrets seemed most vulnerable to daylight. Reed didn't wear his uniform this time. Just plain clothes and a visitor badge. He'd cleared his presence through the principal's office for a quiet follow-up visit related to ongoing safety initiatives. No one asked more. He didn't want a scene. Not yet. Max stayed leashed by his side. Calm but alert, his ears twitching as they passed familiar territory. Reed paused outside the front office and gave the secretary a gentle nod. "I was hoping to review the student support allocation records. Counselor logs. Just routine." The secretary, young, distracted, barely blinked. "Sure, Ms. Crane usually handles that. But you can check the archives. They're digital." He was handed a tablet with limited admin access. Reed took a seat in the corner and started scrolling. At first glance, it all looked standard. A list of students, assigned counselors, notes on sessions, and attendance stamps. But when he filtered the list by frequency, looking for students who had been called to the counselor's office 5 times or more in the last 2 months, a pattern emerged. Each name had a colored dot next to it. The majority were blank, but a few had blue dots. He narrowed the filter again. The blue-dotted students had been to the office more than a dozen times. Sometimes twice in the same week. Not for discipline, not for academic advising, for emotional wellness check-ins. And then Reed noticed something else. Of the 12 blue dot students he could identify, 8 had seen a steep drop in grades. 6 had logged concerning behavior reports from teachers, described in vague terms, withdrawn. Overly quiet, unfocused. 3 had begun missing school irregularly. 2 had been caught sleeping in class. All had stopped participating in clubs or after-school events. Reed wrote down the names. Eva, Jamal, Kaylee, Lucas, Nina. He remembered some of them from the K9 demonstration. Their faces, drained of energy, avoiding eye contact, blank, like they'd been scrubbed from the inside. Reed closed the tablet. His pulse quickened. A color chart. An unofficial designation system, operating inside a school counselor's log. Not based on IEPs. Not on mental health diagnoses confirmed by external professionals. Internal tracking. Vague language. and invisible lines between concern and control. He stood up, thanked the secretary, and started walking the halls. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for, but Max did. The dog turned toward the main stairwell, sniffed once, then trotted forward. Reed followed. In the second-floor hallway near the art room, students were gathered in small clusters waiting for the bell. Max stopped near the lockers, tail flicking. A girl with short curls and a green hoodie froze as she saw the dog. Eva. She stood still, shoulders rising. Max looked up at her and whimpered. Not a bark. Not an alert. Just a soft, knowing sound. Eva's face cracked. She stepped back against the wall, her eyes welling instantly. Then she dropped to a crouch and buried her face in her hands. "I didn't mean to cry," she whispered. "It just—" He barked at her. Reed knelt down next to her. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe." She looked up, eyes red. "I wish I had barked too." The words hit Reed like a cold wave. "What do you mean, Eva? I didn't know she was lying. She was nice, so nice. But after a while, I didn't feel like me anymore. I kept hearing her voice even when I wasn't there. I thought maybe I was sick." "You're not sick," Reed said gently. "She said I needed stabilizing strategies, that talking less would help. She said I was triggering imbalance in group dynamics. But all I did was speak up. Ask too many questions." Eva wiped her nose with her sleeve. "She gave me something once. Said it was herbal, for nerves. It made me sleep in class. I got scared after that." Reed's breath caught. "You told anyone?" "She told me not to. Said I'd jeopardize my growth plan. That she'd already explained things to my parents. But when I asked them, they didn't know." Max pressed closer, leaning into Eva's side like a silent guardian. Reed touched her shoulder gently. "You did the right thing. Can I ask, did you ever see anything strange? Maybe in her office?" Eva nodded. "There was a board. She'd cover it up sometimes when I walked in. I saw colors on it. Blue and red. Red. Another tier. More than just blue dots. More than just students made quiet." By the time the final bell rang, Reed had collected 3 more stories. All whispered, all uncertain, but the pieces aligned. Melissa Crane didn't just counsel students. She sorted them. Those marked blue were gradually withdrawn, pressured into silence, submission, or isolation under the guise of wellness support. And the red group, no one seemed to know who was in it. Or maybe they'd already left. Like MIA Tran. Reed returned to the locker hallway with Max after hours. Using his own key to unlock the building through back access, he passed locker 19 again. And paused. Max sat beside it, silent, waiting. Reed took a long breath. What had begun as a single alert bark had now unraveled into a chilling question. What if this wasn't about helping students at all? What if the program wasn't support, it was suppression? A control system dressed in empathy. Behavioral shaping masked as mental health guidance. "Don't trust the good ones," the note had said, and now Reed believed it. Back at the precinct, he compiled a report. It wasn't enough for charges yet, but it was enough to open a case. To request access to internal communications. To interview former students. To question Melissa Crane's license, her outside affiliations, and her relationship to any third-party behavioral support initiatives. If they existed on paper, he'd find them, and if they didn't, he'd find the people who had disappeared beneath them. Before leaving for the night, he returned to his desk and opened a fresh notebook page. He titled it, "Silent List, Suspected Behavioral Targets." He wrote down the names he knew. Then he added 2 more. MIA Tran, Eva Morales. At the bottom, he wrote a reminder to himself. They didn't choose silence. Someone assigned it to them. And then he underlined it, twice. The key turned with a faint click. No alarms, no motion detectors, just shadows spilling through the crack of the door as Officer Reed Collins pushed it open. Max padded silently ahead of him. Nose low, tail still. Room 3B. By day, it was just another conference room, unused for classes. Occasionally booked for staff development. But by night, according to a recently uncovered schedule buried deep in the school's private calendar, it had one consistent visitor. Melissa Crane. Every Thursday, every other Monday. Always late, always alone. Reed closed the door behind them. His flashlight sweeping across the room, dusty blinds. An unused projector cart, and a long rectangular table with mismatched chairs. But the real prize was on the far side. A laptop. Open. Still warm. Someone had left it running. Reed approached slowly. Max didn't bark, but his body tensed. The same posture he took when standing in front of locker 19. Reed sat and touched the trackpad. The screen lit up. No password prompt. Just a document. Untitled. Still open. Session notes. Progress metrics. He scrolled, and what he saw chilled him. Each entry followed a pattern. Name. Observed behaviors. Communication weaknesses. Emotional receptivity. Compliance potential. Underneath, paragraphs of disturbing detail, not written like counseling notes, but like surveillance reports. Clinical. Strategic. Eva Morales, high anxiety threshold. Responds to canine presence with emotional release. Displays strong inner ethics but can be discouraged by sustained authority tone. Recommendation. Continued low-intensity suggestion reinforcement. MIA Tran. Excessive pattern recognition. Questions protocol. Emotional detachment emerging after third session. Risk. Escalation. Flagged for tier red transfer. Reed's eyes moved faster. Kaylee B shows early signs of intellectual resistance. Hesitates before agreeing to prompts. Vocabulary shrinking. Emotional suppression successful. Continue auditory calming protocol. Each line was worse than the last. This wasn't counseling. This was conditioning. He clicked to the top menu bar. An icon labeled SSP, Draft Reports, opened a spreadsheet. SSP, Silent Steps Program. The file listed 3 columns. Name, School Implementation Phase. Status, under Mapleview High. Silent Steps Initiative, Phase 2. Objective, Soft compliance training for Tier 2 students. Method, Controlled environment. Emotional modulation. Routine disruption. Partner. Silent Steps Foundation. Director. Redacted. At the bottom, a link to a report. Archived. Reed opened it. Case report. Granger Middle School closure 2021. Summary. Following a student suicide, ID withheld. The behavioral modification pilot program known as Silent Steps Initiative was permanently discontinued at Granger Middle School. Allegations included unauthorized psychological conditioning, lack of parental consent, and behavioral experimentation without oversight. Status: Foundation dissolved. Note: assets and operational protocols likely transferred to undisclosed third party. Reed's hand gripped the edge of the table. Mapleview wasn't the start. It was the continuation. The foundation changed its name, changed its address, but kept the same strategy. And someone, Melissa Crane, had resurrected it right under everyone's nose. Good ones, Reed whispered. They always hide behind the badge. Behind a smile, a counselor's cardigan, a soothing tone. He hit print on every open file. The school's printer stuttered to life somewhere down the hall. Too loud. He froze. Max turned his head. Footsteps. Reed shut the laptop and ducked behind the table, pulling Max close. The hallway lights flicked on. Someone was approaching, heels clicking steadily. Melissa Crane. She stepped into the room and stopped. The glow of the laptop still on the table lit her face from below. Her expression didn't change. She simply walked to the laptop, closed the lid slowly, and looked up. "I figured you'd come back," she said calmly. "You and your partner." Reed stood. Room 3B. Locked laptop. Secret program. "That's not counseling, Melissa." Her face softened. Not defensive. Not angry. Pitying. "Officer Collins. You don't understand. You've seen the symptoms, haven't you? The anxiety, the withdrawal, the academic collapse. These kids are drowning in a system built to ignore them. So you drug them, monitor them, reassign their personalities. We give them structure," she said. "We give them peace. You gave MIA Tran a transfer notice and erased her file." Melissa's jaw twitched. She refused to adapt. She became disruptive. "The chart you're so worried about? It's just triage. It helps us understand who needs what." "You mean who can be trained, and who can't?" A pause. "Then, it works." "No," Reed said. "It controls." Max growled. Melissa's eyes flicked down at him. "It's funny. He never liked me, even when I offered treats. Because he smells the truth." She didn't laugh, but she didn't back down. "You don't realize what you've done, officer. This program has sponsors. Protection. You take this public, you'll be buried under paperwork until every student forgets what happened here." Reed stepped forward, voice low. "Someone already died under this program. It's not going to happen again. You can't prove that link. Yet." Behind her, the hallway lights flickered. A low beep echoed from the printer room. Pages finished. Reed didn't move. Neither did she. "I won't let you erase them," he said. "Not MIA. Not Eva. Not anyone else." Melissa folded her arms. "Then I suppose we're at odds." Reed turned to leave. "One more thing," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Max didn't bark at you because of a scent," he said. "He barked because he knew." Then he left the room. Max closed behind. Down the hall, he grabbed the printouts, 37 pages of logs. Names, timestamps, and entries. Evidence. He walked out through the faculty exit. Into the cold night. Heart pounding but clear. This wasn't just about counseling anymore. This was a machine, designed to rewire kids into versions of themselves that didn't ask questions. And now the machine had a face. The auditorium of Mapleview High was packed. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the polished floor, filled with parents in winter coats and kids in stiff dress clothes. The stage was decorated with cheap banners, end-of-year community assembly. Streamers dangling from the edge like the final act of a play too long delayed. This was supposed to be a celebration. Officer Reed Collins sat near the back, one hand resting on Max's harness. The dog sat calmly, his eyes scanning the crowd, ears flicking every time someone whispered or shuffled their feet. He wasn't tense. He was waiting. Reed's heart beat steady but hard. He knew what was about to happen. He knew the moment would be loud. He just didn't know what would happen after. He looked across the room and caught Eva's eye. She sat on stage left, tucked in beside the student council representative. Her hands clutched the folded sheet of paper in her lap. She gave a small nod. He nodded back. The lights dimmed. The mic crackled. A familiar voice took the podium. "Good evening, families and faculty," said Melissa Crane, in her signature calm, melodic tone. "It's my honor to speak to you on behalf of the Guidance and Mental Wellness Team about a year of great progress." She paused for polite applause. Max stood up. Then he barked. Loud, sharp, once, then again, and again. Every head turned. Some people laughed, unsure. But Max kept barking. Not wildly, not fearful, deliberately, focused. He stepped forward, pulling the leash with unusual force. Reed stood with him, calm, and walked down the aisle. The barking stopped the moment they reached the front row. And then, silence. The kind that freezes rooms. Reed turned to face the crowd. Behind him, the projector screen flickered on, and played the first video. Footage from Locker 19. Blurry but undeniable. A student pacing nervously. A shadow appearing at the end of the hall. Melissa Crane, reaching into her coat, handing the student a pill. No audio, but the fear in the student's body was clear. The way they hesitated before swallowing. The way their hands shook. Another video. A file on a screen. Titled, Behavioral Risk Profile. Read, MIA Tran. Scrolls of text. Words like, unstable, refusal, removal suggested. The room fell into stunned stillness. No one clapped. No one whispered. Even the air conditioning seemed to hold its breath. Melissa Crane remained motionless behind the podium. Her hands trembled, just slightly. She reached to kill the projector, but Reed was already there, standing between her and the controls. "I didn't come here to make a speech," he said, voice steady, "but I came here for the truth." In the next hour, Everything unraveled. Reed presented printed documents from Room 3B. Silent Steps records. Psychological scoring matrices. The list of students tagged with soft compliance risk. Parents gasped. Some stood. Some cried. A few, especially those whose children had been quiet lately, withdrawn, struggling, left their seats to check their phones, to text home. By the time the final document appeared on screen, the redacted report from Granger Middle School, the school board members were already on the move. Whispering in tight circles, panic flashing behind every calm nod. A woman in the second row shouted, "Why wasn't this investigated sooner?" Another cried out, "My daughter was in her office every week." Every week. Melissa Crane stood still. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, "You don't understand. I was protecting them." "From what?" Reed asked. "From the world," she snapped. "From overstimulation. From the pain of choices they're not ready to make. From the chaos of parents too distracted to notice them breaking." Her voice cracked. "I gave them order. I gave them peace. You gave them silence," Eva said, standing up, voice small but strong. "And silence," she added, "isn't healing. It's hiding." Within 24 hours, the fallout began. Melissa Crane was placed on immediate leave. Pending a full investigation, the school board came under fire for approving unvetted partnerships. An emergency task force was formed to trace connections between Silent Steps and other institutions. The Silent Steps Foundation, despite its attempts to hide behind shell programs and renamed grants, was officially dissolved following a court injunction. Their documents were seized. Future activities banned. Every student on the color-coded list was offered free therapy from independent professionals. With family involvement and full transparency, a state Senate hearing began 2 weeks later, examining the ethics of embedded behavioral programming in public schools. And Mapleview changed, not just in policy, but in heart. On the final day of the school year, under the open sky of the school courtyard, a short ceremony was held. Max wore a polished badge on his harness. It read, "Guardian of Truth." The students had voted for the title themselves. Reed knelt next to him, smiling quietly, as a line of kids came forward to pet the dog that had barked when no one else had. When the crowd hushed again, Eva Morales stepped up to the podium. No cardigan, no nerves, just her paper, and her voice. She glanced once at Max, then at the crowd, then Reed. "There was a time when we were told to be quiet, to breathe, and calm down, and follow. We were told that silence made us good. That stillness meant we were healed. But stillness isn't the same as safety. Some of us stopped speaking. Some of us stopped sleeping. Some of us disappeared. And we didn't know how to say it. But one day, he did. He barked. Not to scare us. Not to protect himself. But to wake us up. Silence kept us safe. But his bark gave us freedom." People stood, applauded. Some wept. And Max, tail thumping, simply sat and watched. As if he knew. As if he understood what no words could quite hold. That the truth was never silent. It just needed someone brave enough to call it out.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.